Today's show is brought to you by Milwaukee-based Spike Brewing, designer and manufacturer of premium quality home brewing equipment. Is your beer falling flat? Are you sick of setting up all that gear for a brew day and running out to buy propane? Frustrated by the weather dictating your brewing schedule? Take it inside and avoid the cold, wet winter with the turnkey electric system from Spike Brewing. Trusted by homebrewers and pros alike, the Spike system will change the way you brew and take your beer to new heights. And whether you're interested in a simple upgrade from a glass carboy to a stainless steel fermenter, or you're switching from propane to electric, Spike Brewing has the solution for you. Reach out today to spikebrewing.com/homebrew happy hour, and their team can help you figure out what you need to make the most of your brew day. Spike Brewing. Pursue what's possible.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Oh, come on. Hey, there it is. Hey, hello, and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I'm your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson. Sir, how are you doing today?
I am great. Have you been outside?
Here I have. It's there's a crap ton of mayflies. Besides that, it's kind of.
Gosh, it is absolutely one of the most beautiful days I can remember right now.
Up there, I envy you. It's kind of muggy here. What is the temperature too? We've had it's 70, so it's not terrible, but it's muggy here today.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I took the top off the car at lunch and just enjoyed it.
Oh, okay.
Really
now you're just showing off. I mean,
no, it was fun. I was enjoying yesterday, and then going into Tuesday night, it rained all night and all day yesterday. I mean, there's still water standing everywhere. It's amazing that we've got a day like today. And it was crappy so bad yesterday and the day before.
Yeah, dude. It was the drive home when I left there. So I got out of Todd's ranch Tuesday night. I left prior, like 5:40-ish is when I finally hit the road. We did a brew day. We filmed a brew day, an extract brew day. We're doing a new instructional that should be out, I would say, in a couple of weeks, only because of the logistics of getting all this stuff prepared. It's for a complete kegging and brewing kit. And pardon me, not even kegging kit, a complete brewing kit for extract. So it has, it'll have the kettle in it. It'll have the buckets. It'll have a glass carboy. It has, the kit's available right now, but we're doing a how-to video on using it just because a lot of people that are just getting in, written instructions aren't necessarily enough for them. They like to have the visual of it. But anyway,
I would.
We had enough. Yeah. We had enough because of filming and normal brew day mishaps. Even though it was an extract batch, we didn't start until like 11:30, and then we'd have to delay certain things for the sake of getting the shot and doing multiple angles. And then before we knew it, it was already 4:45 when we finally wrapped up, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it took me an hour for us to clean up and then pack all the stuff up. But on the drive home, it was pouring down all the way through Lampasas, I think. I don't know if y'all got that rain Tuesday night. I think I drove through it as it was coming towards you, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it rained that whole evening, that night, and all day yesterday.
And now it's beautiful.
And it's gorgeous today. It's definitely a convertible day weather.
And if my bike, my starter's out. Otherwise, it would be decent weather to take it around town. I know. It's always something with that piece of junk, man. I think that's how it goes. You're a gearhead. I'm probably preaching to the choir. When I started being serious, I'm going to learn my motorcycle. I'm going to take care of it myself because I can't afford to take it to the shop every time I need something.
Yeah, motorcycle labor rates are way more than car.
Are they? I believe you, because everything's expensive. It cost replacing the two tires when I got this bike 4 years ago now, or 3 years ago. I replaced the tires because they had dry rot. The tires that came with it did.
Yeah, that's dangerous. You definitely want to have good tires.
And so I, went there thinking, oh, it's probably going to be like $500, no big deal. It was like damn near $1,000, man. It was,
Sheesh.
and for decent, I say that was like middle of the road tires. Like they were like, here's ones where I forget what the mile rate was, but with motorcycles, it's not my daily commuter, so it's a lot less miles I put on it any given year. But the real cheap ones, which were still like $700 after labor and everything, were not going to be. They were a lot worse when I looked it up and did my homework on like the ones I ended up spending like $880 on after labor or whatever I spent. But
wow,
yeah. But anyway, yeah. I would love to take the bike out. That was the whole point of me even bringing it up. But
it's a good bike weather day today.
Yeah. Y'all may already noticed, but if you're audio only, then you've probably only heard my voice and James' voice. That's because Todd could not join us today. Mr. Burns, poor guy, had to hop in a helicopter today with a gun, his rifle, and he is killing hogs Terminator style. The only thing that would have made his trip cooler is if they had mounted guns, if they had actual machine guns. But he told me
50 cal.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been like when he pitched the idea to me that I think they have like 20 guys there, don't they, doing this helicopter thing?
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. And
so he didn't even follow up. I told him a month and a half ago when he started booking it to come to his property, because real quick before our vegan friends get upset at us, I'm sure they're out there. They're the one demographic I don't hear from actually on this show, so maybe we don't have vegan audience. But the hogs in Texas, first off, guys, are a huge nuisance, really bad, and not just because there's so many of them. They're destructive. You should go on Todd's property at some point if you make it to our neck of the woods, friends, and see the literal damage that they make it uninhabitable. They tear it up.
They can tear up a plot of land. It looks like somebody rotor tilled the thing up.
Exactly.
It's amazing. I mean, I would say over $1 billion in damages a year from just hogs, and that doesn't even include the damage to cars and
animals.
People don't understand. They don't have to deal with it, how bad it is.
The environmental impact from these hogs is terrible. And unfortunately, they're also delicious. So it's a win-win for not all of them. We killed a mama. We killed a bunch of them a few trips ago that I was up there about a month ago, and she stunk. I didn't normally when we kill hogs, I'm like, can we take it and process it? And Todd always tells me, no, that one's not big enough. No, that one's not big enough. This mama, she was big enough, but we got up to her and she stunk. I was like, it's the perception now. I don't even want to try to, because you could clean her up. You could put lipstick on that pig. I don't want to eat it. It's no, thank you. But yes, Todd and a bunch of buddies, and like one of his really good friends has a bunch of colleagues who are all there taking turns 2 by 2 going up in this helicopter. And just like I said, taking care of the hog problem. They projected, the people who did the survey and got the helicopter, that there was over 1,000 hogs on just Todd's property. Like,
I believe that.
Isn't that nuts?
Definitely.
Isn't that nuts? I mean, it's nuts to think about, but it's not nuts when you're here. And next time Todd and I do a walkabout, which has been a while because we're always so busy when I come up there, I'll take photos of the destruction so people can get an idea of it is terrible what they destroy the trees. They kill everything in sight. They were probably what was responsible for one of Todd's dogs that got killed a couple years ago. Remember Teddy?
Oh, yeah.
They found him with puncture holes all in him. That seems like it would probably be a hog doing that to him, but
it does sound like a hog.
Anyway, I'm just trying to make the case so that people don't write in like, Todd, you murderer. Oh, think of the pig. Think of the pigs. It's like, we are thinking of the pigs.
Oh, the humanity.
We're thinking of the pigs with some eggs and maybe a biscuit. And but yeah,
definitely.
So Todd cannot join us, but I can't talk too much trash about him because if you're a video, if you're a part of our video audience, you can see in the background here this nice display of Pilsner Urquell that I have. Thanks to Mr. Burns. He gave James and I both our own lunchbox to take. Todd's suggestion to me was, hey, give one of your kids that lunchbox. They'll be cool at school. I said, yeah, well. We'll see about that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
But I'll have to see if Emily will take it with her.
Dude, please, yes. Yeah, how old is she? 13, right?
She's 14.
See, they care more about I know I can talk at least my Esther into taking it because she trusts me still to be cool. Like my 9-year-old doesn't. My 9-year-old will be like, "No, Daddy, I don't want to do that." My 7-year-old will definitely. She would say, "Yeah, Daddy, of course. That's a real cool lunchbox." And then the teacher will go, "I kind of recognize that. What is that from?" But I have not opened these.
Oh, it's Austin area. They'll say that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Daddy's an alcoholic. Ha ha ha. I haven't opened them yet. You did. They're all the same, right? They're just different cans.
They are.
Okay.
Just different cans.
Because I didn't think
I had one Tuesday night when I got home. I had one last night, and no, I had 2 and 2. So mine are gone. There's 4 beers in each pack.
Well, in Urquell, they don't do. That is their beer, right? Because that's what I was thinking when I saw the different cans. I was like, they don't do a dark lager, do they? It's just this Pilsner, right?
I think it's just that. I could be wrong.
Obviously,
that's all
I could
I've ever
too.
seen.
Yeah, me too. And obviously, I'm very open to being wrong. But I'm saving. I'm going to take them over to my dad's and enjoy them over there. And then who his neighbor is a big craft beer guy. I think this is a good. This is, they called it the original Pilsner, and they're not wrong, right?
No, it's about as an intense Pilsner as you could find. Yeah, it's got that definite hardcore Pilsner finish. I like it.
I like it a lot. Well, we had a real good time when we were in Prague. Remember when we found between?
Yeah, but we had a hard time finding that, right?
It was
everything else was
no, we had a hard time finding Budvar except that on tap. We had a hard time finding Budvar on tap.
Yeah. We had that we found that on tap at that Golem.
Yeah, at Golem's in the Jewish district, that goulash place, which was phenomenal.
Right.
And I learned
cool.
And I've learned what goulash actually is. It's not I always thought it was like an Italian dish with like meat and pasta, and it's not at all. It's more like carne asada without the Latino flair. But anyway, it was delicious. I would love to go back to Prague as soon as possible. If you're listening, Mr. Burns, I'd love to go back to Prague.
Yep.
But anyway,
I'm ready to go back.
I know. So some small talk stuff first to get out of the way. We did our Patreon giveaway. Congratulations, Billy. Last month for February, he won a $50 gift card to homebrewsupply.com. This month, I got the green light from Todd, and I didn't even talk to you about it. So this is news to James potentially. The March giveaway is a V3N stout faucet from CM Becker International. Thank you, James.
You bet.
It is. I still don't have one on my system, and that's one that I'm every year. I'm like, I need to implement that, man. I know now that I don't have a kegerator here, I don't have to implement it. But having that faucet, and now after we took that one question from our friend Mark a few episodes ago about how versatile the faucet is, I'm like, there's no reason to not have one. They're priced right if you are buying it. I believe they're on sale right now through kegconnection.com, and they are. It's just a solid all-around faucet, especially if you are doing nitro and you want to get over that. Nothing's wrong with the original stout faucet that everyone knows, but it doesn't necessarily blend well on a system. It
sticks out, and it's dimensionally it doesn't fit in a tight, compact area.
That's what the dimensions is really what I harp on. Is like, you gotta have the space for it, man. You gotta have the space where this V3N will fit on your system. If a normal faucet, and by normal I just mean like standard faucet of any kind, fits on your system, this V3N will go right in. So that'll be our March.
It's a convertible faucet too. If you don't, you can change the. They've got a straightener and a diffuser disc in the nozzle, so you just take that out, and it's a forward seal creamer. It's a pretty cool faucet.
Win, win, win. And so, if you are a member of our Patreon groups, go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. You can join. You'll be put into the giveaway. Look at the tiers, because some tiers offer as much as 5 entries to our monthly giveaway. And I can attest, Billy is in one of those top tiers, and his name was just added what are we at now? We're at like 55 patrons, I think. And we have we have almost 20 at that $50 level getting recipes every month, and they also get the 5 entries every month. They get the premium welcome pack. The $35 one gets, I think, 4 entries every month. And so those People on the lower level, one person, he was very nice about it, but he wrote in, he goes, hey, what are the chances of me winning? And I was like, I'm not telling you to upgrade your thing. I'm just saying most people on our Patreon are at those top levels because they want the recipes. Again, I'm not convinced they actually care about supporting our efforts as a show. I think they just want the discounts and the free recipe. But
either way, you know.
Yeah, it works out. It works out, sure, because it's Todd's money. I mean, but it all works out. But I told him, I was like, man, look, you know what? For March, I've been saying it for all the other ones. I'm going to do it live. I'm going to draw the name, digitally. I'll show the tablet with all y'all's names on it. And so y'all can see that the difference it makes with when total of the 50, like 32 of them are in those top two tiers. So 32 with 5 and then 4 per person entries makes a huge difference on a list.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, so yes, that's what's our giveaway for March. We did just launch our new show, Recipe Recap and Review. You can check out the first episode on our YouTube channel or at homebrewhappyhour.com. The first one was about a fat tire clone that James brewed. It was probably the best one we could have launched with because it was like the most spot on clone any of us have ever brewed.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have bet that a few weeks before because I was like, man, this is not even close. It's amazing how quick it turned around.
In time, it is also a good testament how time is beer's friend. It is yes. It can help out so much. You've had a few brews where I'll come over early in the fermentation or like secondary or cold crashing process, and you're like, it's not really where I want it. It's not this, it's not that. But then a month later and we still have some, and you're like, oh my God, this finished out good. Like I think
it's almost gone.
Yeah, exactly. When you finally like it. I think that the Bohemian Pilsner is my favorite example of you doubting yourself, and literally every person who drank it, that was their favorite beer of the night on tap. And you're like, wow. No, I don't really like it.
Yeah, not my best beer, guys.
And everyone loved it, especially Todd's dad. Todd's dad drank that keg himself. He didn't leave any. Whenever I don't know if you noticed when we were both there Monday night filming more episodes for Recipe Recap and Review, Todd put a limitation on what I could drink off the draft. And I'm pretty sure he did that for his dad. he was like, Josh, take it easy on my Dos Equis Amber clone and my Fat Tire clone. Just want to make sure I have enough for the guys. And I was like, by guys, you mean your father. But okay, anything for Mr. Burns. I like his dad. So
good guy.
And then, oh man, my mic just went out. And then one more thing we do. We can't talk about it now. I know it's on your desk, but don't put it in front of the camera yet. We are going to,
tease.
Yes, there is. Look at that. Oh, it's so beautiful and shiny. There might be a new product coming out from our friends at spikebrewing.com. You may know them. They sponsor this show. They have, we are doing some content on an upcoming all-in-one single vessel unit. I'm going to give you a premature spoiler. It looks awesome.
It is cool.
Oh, it looks so cool. I'm very
It's so
pumped.
simple and compact. People are going to really love how easy it is to operate.
I'm very excited. I'm going to be back up there next week, all week. Our friend Kenny, the brewer of Seville, is coming to visit us. We're going to do some content with him, one of which is going to be a brew day. We're going to do a brew day on a bunch of different systems, actually. It's going to be fun, and we're going to do individual videos, specifically, though, on this new Spike setup. I am super excited about it. They've been teasing it on their social media for a long time. And I would love, I don't know how many other people in like the blogosphere of homebrewing they've hit up. I like to flatter myself and go, oh, it's just us.
We're the only ones.
And we're probably not. They sponsor Brewlosophy too. Marshall, he doesn't listen to this show. Hardly anybody listens to the show, but he probably has their own stuff coming out too. And Short Circuited might as well. And there's a bunch of other great people in our space, but I'd like to pretend like Spike lights us the most. So I'm going to just leave it at that. Spike lights us the most. You heard it here. So with that being said, we do have a great show. We have 3 questions on today's show. So let's get started. The first one came from Lou B, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Lou wrote, hey, Joshua, I just found your show a few months ago and love it. Very informative. I'm new to making beer at home, and I bought a recipe kit from an online store. Don't shame me, but it wasn't Keg Connection. Their instructions tell me to ferment in a temperature range that is different than what the liquid yeast patch says to ferment at. What should I follow, and should I let the store know about the discrepancy? This isn't that uncommon that sometimes recipes can be mistaken or even maybe have picked the wrong yeast in regards to what the customer got. And by wrong, I'm going to let you take it because I don't want to say the wrong.
That's a subjective term.
Yes.
That with homebrewing, I don't know if there's a few things that are just wrong, but my first and foremost is like I've always said, always go by what the manufacturer of the product suggests. Because a lot of times when these people are because everybody does their own kits now. I know we do and everybody else, because it's just more cost effective that way. It's easier to control inventory when you're doing your own kits. And that being said, sometimes, and I've been guilty of it too, is when I'm trying to put out a bunch of recipes, I'll use a generic instruction form, and then I'll miss some details on a kit. And it will take sometimes the customer telling me, "Hey, James, I think you got this wrong because doesn't seem right." And then I'm like, yep, you're right. I messed up on that. We have had to make changes in the past. You know it. I would definitely let them know. And, they may not, if they don't want you to follow the manufacturer's directions, then they should have a real good reason why. So I would say first and foremost for success, always follow what the person that made the product suggests, because they're probably going to know more than the person that put the kit together.
And I know as someone who has helped Todd convert like homebrew supply recipes and instructions rather, I know sometimes I can be bad at copying and pasting, guys. and Lou, there's a very good chance that information was copied and pasted from a whole, because a lot of people, homebrew supply, Keg Connection included, use a generic kind of layout with the only information that changes being what your grain bill is and your mashing temp and stuff like that should be,
and maybe a few details in the middle, but
that should be what changes, right?
Yeah, I've made that mistake for sure.
Yeah, and so I know I think Lou nailed it. He knows what to do. Like, contact them and let them know, and ask them, because maybe James and I are wrong. Maybe they're like, no, trust us. You want this ester to come out at the But
so. And one case in point would be along those lines is if you were wanting to stress the yeast to produce a different outcome as far as flavor, taste, esters, and all that, but they need to specify that's the reason why, just to keep people from doubting the instructions themselves.
Right.
I know I would.
Right. Exactly.
Because you're going to have the yeast in there. The instructions are going to be on the back of the yeast. Or if you're a geek like me, you're going to go to their website and look at what they recommend as far as does it need a starter? What's the cell count, viability? There's a lot of things that come into play of having a successful brew and something that stalls out at 1020 or 1028. And, do your homework. It helps.
Exactly. And thankfully for this invention known as the internet, it's very simple. To every yeast manufacturer is very good. And it's because it's in their best interest to be, but they're very good at having exact numbers, because they need your brew day to succeed so that you keep buying their product. That's what I love about the yeast companies. Are some of my favorite, especially the liquid ones, because of how fragile their product is. They're very on it in regards to, like, please ship this out with ice, or please, be in this range, or here's what you're going to get. And you can go to their websites. Like Imperial has a phenomenal website. White Labs has a phenomenal website. Y Yeast. There's a bunch of other culture club type things that have websites to just let you know. And like James said, to reiterate, yes, follow the manufacturer's instructions of the yeast. If it's the liquid yeast, they know their product better than Josh Stubing does, who copy and pasted the wrong information. And you go
James Carlson,
and you go, but James Carlson's never steered me wrong. And then you don't go with what the yeast patch says, and then you have a bad day. And then I'm writing you emails like, I'm so sorry that I'm an idiot and I sent you this out, and we're sorry. Blah, blah, blah.
It creates a lot of other problems for sure.
Absolutely. So yes, follow what the pack says, and you're going to have a much better day. And let the store know, like, or at least be inquisitive and say, hey, I was just curious why, their range says 62 to 64. 68 and you say 70 to 72. What's going on? And they'll say, oh, because Josh is an idiot and he wrote the wrong things down.
Because the instructions were wrong.
Yeah, because the instructions were wrong. I'm trying not to throw Zach under the bus because he listens to this show now, but it's actually Zach. I'm just taking the blame for him. Anyway, moving on. Oh, thank you, Lou, for submitting your question. It's a good time, like I do every episode, to remind you, if we take your question on air, we give you a $25 gift card too. For this week, it is catconnection.com. So, Lou, check your inbox. You have gotten a $25 gift card to Cat Connection. So, moving on to question number 2, came from Rick C., who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Rick wrote, "Hi guys. By guys, I mean Josh. Woo. I have a question, because why else would I be typing, right? I looked through your past podcast to make sure there wasn't anything on this, but I didn't see it. My question is, how much does pH matter in your mash? Is it super important? And how would you balance it if it was off? I know I basically just said hi to Josh, but this may be more of a James question now that I think about it. My bad, Josh. You're absolutely right. Thanks as always, Rick. Rick, you're right. This is a James question. I'm going to shut up now and just cue it over to James.
Well, it can be a big deal. We use RO water and mainly brew some of the lighter, paler beers, so it's not as big a factor. I do know that you want to be, when you're mashing, you want to be 5.2 to 5.7 pH. That's the ideal range, and we tend to hit that every time with RO water and the type of beers that we brew. But for a lot of people, now this is one of those rabbit hole questions. We could talk about it all day long, and I'm still learning a lot on water. It's one of those overlooked things that I think a lot of brewers don't think about, and it can make huge difference. I'll give you a good story about water and how it can affect. We had a system that I built, was a barrel and a half system, and it was a single infusion mash setup. Basically, it's just a big cooler brew system. And the inaugural brew, we did like a amber ale, and we were shooting high on gravity, like 7%. So we had lots of grains. And we used well water out and never even thought about having it analyzed. And it produced some of the nastiest beer I think I've ever made. That was also the same one that was the beer, or the Bodor batch.
Oh, I love that story.
So you can imagine, after we had the water analyzed, it wasn't even good to shower with. There was a lot of dissolved solids. The salt content was way high. It was, where I live, it's called Duster, Texas. It's all cotton, not cotton field, but it's all agricultural fields, usually hay and livestock on that hay. And so they're using lots of chemicals to make the hay produce, and it's just not good for brewing beer. We figured out that Bodor was the main issue, but there was I can still taste that underlying taste of the beer. That was the water. So what goes on is you have just a RO water, or regular water has a pH of 7, so they consider that neutral. It's not really alkaline, and it's not acidic. And when you introduce grains in there, grains typically are slightly acidic when they're mashed, but as you roast them more, they become more and more acidic to the mash. That's why brewing a stout, if you've got lots of roasted malts, it can actually drive it more acidic, and you have to counter that with water salts, is what we call it. You can use gypsum, calcium carbonate. There's wonderful tools online. I think Brewer's Friend has a great water tool online that you can check out. And you can adjust that range. You can go alkaline or you can go acidic with just simple additions, but you want to stay between that 5.2 and 5.7 pH range. And if you don't, that second batch of beer that we did, it didn't have that Bodor taste, but it tasted terrible. So water is very important, and it's something that I am still learning on. And I encourage you to go to places like byo.com. They have a great article about water and pH, and craft brewing. I think they have a website that does that. Just Google it and do some research. That's what I'm doing. Lorena with Brewer's Friend, She's awesome at water, and she'll answer questions. She's she's forgotten more about beer than I'll ever know.
It's true, but it's because we're drunks and we just forget it. No, she also on water, I believe, I don't want to misspeak. If you're a member of the AHA, I think you can go back and like Palmer did a speech.
Yeah, John Palmer's a great resource.
His book is supposed to be phenomenal on water. I know last year was kind of weird. Like Palmer and some other bigger names had like you had to pay extra to get into their talks. But I think Palmer did a talk on water in Portland 2 years ago that is on the AHA's website. So if you're a member, it's worth going into HomebrewCon. They have all the talks and the videos of them and the audio, and I'm pretty sure Palmer's is up there on water. And he's, like I said, considered like an authority
he's a legend
on water. So if you can find it or his book, but like you said, I bug poor Lorena. I hit her up every week. I'm always very cordial. I'm like, hey, Lorena, how's the family? How are y'all doing? And then she's like, good. Okay. What's going on? Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, help me with this kombucha, lady. Please help me. I can't. But she is a darling, and she is exceptionally brilliant at a lot of things, specifically brewing. She's a very smart lady. And so she did a water article that you can find at homebrewhappyhour.com. Or it might actually be on Homebrew Supply. I don't know if I stole it from their website yet or not. But if you just typed in like water profiles, or I'll put, you know what? I'll put the link in our show notes at homebrewhappyhour.com. That way you don't have to guess. You can just go, and I'll also link to Palmer's book and the BYO stuff you were talking about and the calculators on Brewer's Friend.
Yeah,
I'll cover our whole
lots of resources online. And then, of course, the most obvious question people are probably asking right now, guys, how do I find out about the pH? I forgot to bring that up. Well, you can go to Amazon and they have electronic meters, and it almost looks like a foldable temperature gauge. And you can stick it in the mash and it'll tell you the pH. And then what I use is just test strips.
And that's what I've used.
Anybody that's had a pool knows what test strips are.
And wait, what is you went over it, but you get the range. I'll put that in the link as well, because you found a source. You sent it to me, a very affordable testing stuff.
Yeah. The testing labs.
Yes, that's what I
think. We'll put a link on the podcast, but they're super simple to use. The pH meters can be pretty pricey. I haven't got one yet. I'm going to. I just never think about it. But pH is one of the things that if you're having problems with a certain type of beer, especially if it's on the darker side, then pH could be a contributing factor, especially if you're using city water. Now, keep in mind, if you're using city water, you can always go to City Hall. Sometimes they'll have it listed on the city website under the water department. They'll have a water analysis sheet that you can check out and see exactly what's going on with water. Is it good for your style of beer? And more importantly, it will give you the data that you can use to punch in. And there's lots of water calculators online, and you can punch your water data in there and where you want to be, and it'll tell you what additions you need to make. And there's a wealth of knowledge online, and also tools for dissecting your water and your mash and where you need to go.
Best time to be alive ever. I've said it a million times, but I believe it, friends. So yes, Rick, thank you so much for submitting your question. Mr. Carlson, I got one more question for us. Came from Benji L, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Benji wrote in, hey, you guys rule. That's a pretty good way of getting your question on the show.
Oh,
People
cool.
have figured out. I have a question on cleaning all-in-one systems, specifically those with recirculation. I regularly brew on the Grainfather with probably 40 brews having been completed so far and no issues with infection or any off flavors. I am diligent with sanitation and understand the how to properly clean and sanitize, but not sure how far I should go with this. I have never broken down the pump or piping from the pump to the recirculation arm and wonder if this is something that should be done, or if the PBW cleaning process and recirculating the wort when it's near boiling is enough to keep things clean and sanitary long term. I actually started out sanitizing the whole Grainfather system before each brew, but have cut that process out and now just recirculate the wort around 210 degrees Fahrenheit to sanitize in an effort to save time, and I have not noticed any difference. Please ask James if he agrees with this process and if he ever breaks down the pump to thoroughly clean. With his near anal sanitizing practices and engineering background, if he doesn't do it, then I'm definitely not going to do it. However, I have helped brew at production breweries, and the portable pumps do get broken down and sanitized. So what do you guys think? Thanks, and keep up the awesome work. Your reputation precedes you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. I used that Grainfather for 2.5 years before we got the spike system. Brewed a lot of batches of beer through it, never had any issues. I don't ever remember sanitizing before mashing, mainly because when you do the mash and then you end up rolling into the bull's going to sanitize the system, and that's probably over anal.
Yeah,
if such a thing. But I do know that I did have to take the pump apart. This was a year and a half ago, because we had a flow issue and it was just dirty. The impeller had caked on pieces, and it was more of I don't know if it was beer stone or what it was, but it definitely helped to take it apart and clean it. It's not a very big pump. If memory serves, it's a magnetic actuated pump, just like a regular chugger pump is. And it was fairly easy to clean because the clamps, it has the ones that I had. And Todd's Grainfather, it's a first generation. It doesn't have the Wi-Fi on it, but it had the ratcheting clamps, is what I call them. Where you can release them with a screwdriver. You can tighten them up by hand. But I think I actually took those off and used Oedeker clamps for a better connection. It's got silicone rubber boots going into the pump, and I think coming out of the pump to the stick going to the wand. So there was really nothing. It's funny because the cover for the pump, you push the bottom end, it's got a tab, and it'll come off without having to use any screws. So it's clearly designed where you can, if you need to get to the pump, you can. I think I would probably do that yearly. Be careful with it, because I don't think those pumps, if you have to get those pumps from Grainfather, they're not cheap.
They're not cheap.
No.
Yeah.
But as far as cleaning afterwards would be the most important thing, is you want to use any kind of powdered cleaner that also removes beer stone. And then I use a Scotch-Brite pad to clean the bottom of the base of the Grainfather, because especially that element's actually it's spot welded to the bottom of the underside of that vessel, and where you can kind of tell where the element is, that's where the most deposits of wort will get baked on, and you'll have to scrub that off. Other thing to remember too is make sure your wort chiller's clean and flushed, and then before you use it, I always put it, when I add the Warflock tablet, the last 15 minutes of the boil, I'll go ahead and mount the chiller, and I'll recirculate it back into the boiler to help sterilize the chiller. Because I know wort chillers are one of the main causes of infection in a beer. And the plate chillers are the worst, because they're the ones they're the hardest to clean. So I had a Blinkman plate chiller. I think they called it the Therminator. And I had a big pinto bean stock pot. And when we started our morning crushing grain, I would fill it up with water and put the plate chiller in there, put the lid kind of halfway on it so it doesn't boil over. And I would let it just sit there and boil all day long, so that it would, if there was anything in there, because it would catch hop trub and all of that, and that promotes bacteria. So do that if you use that, hook it up and run it in the last 15 minutes of the boil cycle, you're going to be fine. And then a good cleaning, I think that's all that's needed for that.
Yeah, I was gonna inject whenever he said PBW. I would just say, I mean, we use Brew Clean, but any
Clean's a great product.
Any powder based one is yes, that is good. I hate giving cleaning advice, or I hate giving advice. This is a terrible show for me to be a part of. Only because it's gonna be like, we're gonna say one thing, and then watch next week it's going to be, had my first infection when I didn't. I mean, I'm being facetious, but it's like, I sometimes over worry, and then sometimes I don't at all, and it all knock on wood, we're all good. It's not bitten me and my dad in the butt yet. Like when we do our fermentation transfer from primary to secondary and we do it open, I've had some criticism where there are people who just do open fermentation period, and they have phenomenal beer, like we've talked about with all the German breweries in Dusseldorf that are doing everything open fermentation, where everything inside of us here says, why would you do that? Or open fermentation seems like a terrible idea. There are people, unless you're going for that farmhouse thing, but they're not, and they nail it still.
No, and they can consistently put out a great product, so it is possible. I think it's a numbers game. If you've got a lot more yeast than you have bacteria, there's no room left. It's like that having weeds in a front yard. You've got a thick, plush, green yard. There's nothing left for anything else to eat. I don't know.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah, I was just thinking, man, my yard has not been green ever, and I think I got. I was just thinking, I think I have a
sticker yard.
I'll just say, I think I have an HOA letter here or something. I think for telling me that I owe them money for bad yard. You just gave me PTSD. That's all. I was like, oh, clean something clean. What does that kind of yard look like, James? But yes,
I have no idea.
Yeah, but
I live in a town called Duster. So.
Well, Benji, I think what he's doing, like, I like how thorough he was to say that, because I think a lot of people listening, he uses the Grainfather, but it's applicable to all these all-in-ones. And I'm assuming it will be with this upcoming one from Spike, where you can be as thorough as you want and be clean. Cleanliness is important. We can't stress that enough. I would never say
that goes without saying.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be clean first and sanitize later.
Yeah, I would never suggest, like, that is the most important part of your brew day is cleanliness, because you could have everything else go smooth and you didn't properly clean your fermenting bucket or your, like you said, the wort chiller. You have an immersion one, but you didn't put it in during the boil, and you just put it in during the cool down. And there's a lot of times where your beer could have been great and it wasn't, because you introduced bacteria through an uncleaned item. And so cleanliness, sanitation, be a good janitor on brew day. And the steps that Benji took and listed there for an all-in-one is perfect. I think it's great. But I'm also, taking apart and cleaning the pump doesn't sound appealing to me. But like you said, if you thought it was necessary to do, it can be done, and not a huge pain in the butt, specifically with the Grainfather.
Yeah, and because that inlet screen that they provide with the system, it won't trap everything. And in fact, a lot of times, if you've got a late hop edition or if you've got a whirlpool edition, a lot of the New England style IPAs, they have lots of hops after the boil. They can tend to clog around that inlet, and I've had to pop it loose from the from the pump inlet just to get it to move fluid. And I had it one time. I had it so bad that it was packed. The impeller was completely packed with hop trub, and I had to take it apart to free it up. I did not infect that batch of beer. I don't know how I didn't, but I think what I did was I poured it off by hand, picked the whole thing up, poured it in a bucket, and then was able to chill it down some more and fix it. Everything happens. You can't plan it. But if you know how to deal with it after, when it does happen, is the best thing.
Absolutely. And I think Benji,
it sounds like he knows what he's doing.
He sounds like he knows what he's doing. He sounds like he might be a long-time listener, because like I was formerly Mr. Breakfast Stout. And now Kolsch is my shtick, or both, really. And we did an episode coming up on Recipe Recap about the Breakfast Stout. Thank you, Todd, for lifting the ban. You were Mr. Grainfather, and you still are. When you're actually, here's what's so funny. You're friends with them. You are like, you made it a point to befriend them at trade shows, and and every time you see them, you're like, if someone's around, you arm around them, you're like, best product in the world right here. Like, they made you a believer.
The first time I brought my alt beer, where was that at?
Oh, that was Minnesota.
Okay, it was in Minnesota, and we had it there, and they always seem to have the booth like 2 booths down from us, wherever we're at. And I can remember we were handing samples out, and I was telling everybody how I brewed it and all of that. And I could see in the corner of my eye, they were all watching me because they were waiting for me to mention their product.
That's right. Exactly. They're like, any moment now, Mr. Carlson. Yeah, because I think we met them in Baltimore when we weren't showing. Like we went to their booth, you introduced yourself, you're like, I love your product, blah, blah, blah. And then the next year when we were showing, they're like a couple booths down. And every show since, they've been a couple booths down.
Yep.
And
and they that company buys our disconnects. And they've been a good supporter of CM Becker when they could have gone to China, and China's just absolutely killing us on disconnect sales.
Yeah, they're pumping it out.
We have a better product. So
that's what that is that's an idea I shot by Todd that he wants to do is a video comparison on what's been flooding the market. Only because I think people, if they don't want to spend a couple bucks to do the test themselves, then we can provide the visual for them to show like the actual quality difference. It makes a difference. That's why like Pico Brew. That's why Pico Brew buys from you. That's why Bevy, who I guess they're the parent company for Grainfather. That's why they buy from you. Installers all across the country buy from you. Yeah, it's a cool thing whenever I say cool, it becomes a default to them because they try to go the cheap route. By cheap, I mean literally, not just more affordable, but cheap product route. And then they have to go do support at this bar, for hours. And they're like, okay, we'll spend the money next time. So anyway.
Yeah, we had one of the world's largest homebrew suppliers come by our booth. Was it last year?
Yep.
And they said they had a failed disconnect. And we're like, hey, no problem. We'll take care of that. No problem at all. It wasn't ours.
Yeah. You remember they put their head down. They're like, because it was at their booth. The disconnect failed on what they were serving, right? Isn't that what it was? Or what?
I think so. It was on their jockey box.
Yeah, that's what it was. And they came by like, hey, our disconnect failed. And you had stopped them right there. Like, well, we'll absolutely fix that for you right now. And they're like, well, it wasn't yours. And so you still gave him a disconnect.
Yeah, I said, well, here, let me give you. I said, I'll trade you. And he said, okay. And I gave him one. And without missing a beat, there was a trash can right next to where I was standing. I just chunked it right in the trash can. I said, all right. Thank you, sir.
Fair trade. Bye. But anyway, so Benji, thank you so much for submitting a question. Mr. Carlson, that does it for this week's show. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm sorry that you couldn't be up in the helicopter getting the hogs as well.
Boy, I'm just sorry I missed that.
I'm not going to lie. I'm really jealous. It had a high price tag on it. So when Todd didn't call me back to see if I still wanted to do it because they already had enough people, I didn't give him a hard time about it because it was not a cheap trip. Turns out helicopters are expensive to operate.
I don't think that much about hunting anyway. So I'd rather put money under a hood or in a beer recipe.
Yeah, in a beer recipe or in the car. Yeah. I don't mind putting it in some hogs. Anyway, I'm digressing. So thank you, Mr. Carlson, for joining me. I will see you next week when I'm up there and we record next week's show.
All right. Sounds good.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, Spike Brewing Equipment, for supporting us and the home brewing community. Learn more about their incredible equipment at spikebrewing.com/homebrew happy hour and make the most of your brew day. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.